Strong stuff. Joining us now to talk about the budget and the conservative response is Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, Congressman, you've been a leader on oversight for NSA surveillance. I want to get to that, but first, of course, let's talk about this budget deal. We know what's in it. Are you going to vote for it?
Right now, I'm a whip lean yes. I am inclined to vote for it. I want to take the next 24 hours or so to make sure there isn't something that we missed along the way. But right now, I'm inclined to support the budget deal. It's not exactly the perfect package. It is compromised, but I do think it's moving us in the right direction.
Okay, and as you know, and as your speaker was talking about, there's some outside conservative groups which often put all kinds of money and pressure on these races who seem to be opposing this deal. Heritage Action calls it a step backwards, and Club for Growth slams it as you know, smoke and mirrors. Do you think they're just wrong on the economics here?
Well, they're entitled to their opinion, but I report not to them, but to the people of Utah. And again, it's not perfect. There are things I don't like about it, but I do think it is better than doing nothing. And so I'm inclined to support it.
And Congressman, you voted against the package to reopen the government. So is it fair to interpret this as a feeling among some of the conservative folks like yourself that you've gotten enough out of this?
No, I like to remind people that 14 times in a row, I voted in favor of keeping the government open. It was that final package which really lifted the debt ceiling by close to $500 billion without any systemic changes that I had a problem with. But as the speakers pointed out, as Paul Ryan's pointed out, I believe the score on this will actually reduce the deficit,
right.
And that is a move in the right direction.
Yeah, no, and I was speaking to some Democrats on the Senate Budget Committee today, and they've said that. I think the numbers seem to bear that out from what we understand. It is new numbers. I think the piecemeal votes, you know, people can debate that out, but I do want to also turn, as I mentioned, to the NSA surveillance. It's a controversial issue for a lot of people, but it's also increasingly nonpartisan. And as you know, the Washington Post reports that the agency now is using Google's tracking technology to spy on many people, and there's a Senate hearing that I want to play some sound from. Take a listen.
How do you connect the dots? And that's the issue with the metadata program. There is no other way that we know of to connect the dots. And so that gets us back to, do we not do that at all? Given that the threat is growing, I believe that is an unacceptable risk to our country.
That's pretty strong language, Congressman, and as you know, the idea that we want to connect the dots is not in dispute. People want our government to do this work to keep us safe. The issue, as I understand it, is whether there's going to be real oversight. Speak to us, if you can, about anything you would do on the Patriot Act provision here and these new reports on Google.
Well, I'm doing something in conjunction with Senator Wyden. I'm a pretty conservative Republican. We're doing a bicameral bipartisan. We got what's called the GPS Act, which basically says you need a probable cause warrant in order to track somebody's geolocation. The big question before the country is, are you going to take suspicionless people and are you going to track their whereabouts?
Right.
I think we have a reasonable expectation of privacy. I'm not willing to give up every liberty in the name of security. Overseas is different than how we deal with it domestically. And we have got to put some limitations, not just on law enforcement, but somebody else who wants to surreptitiously follow somebody else and their whereabouts. There's got to be some limits to that. And I think the tech company and community will ultimately embrace this. I think it's just fair, and that we're doing it in a bipartisan way. We've introduced this bill 2 years ago, and I will continue on with it.
No, and you do see the votes clearly building up, bipartisan, and that last one had a lot of Democrats on board who want some checks here. I also want to get your thoughts, though, on the new enrollment numbers on Obamacare. It's a major increase from October to November, and on October 30th, you issued a statement that said, in part, the rollout of Obamacare has been a complete and total disaster from its earliest inception to its current implementation. I got to ask you, Congressman, if you were mad when the website wasn't working, are you happy now that it's working and the enrollments are increasing?
Look, we're talking about people's health care. We're not trying to play some political game here. The least of their problems is going to be the website. Now, that's been disaster. It's creating chaos. But what I really think is going to be shocking to people is how much more they're going to end up paying for this. I think that deductibles are going to be much higher. Not going to be able to keep the plan. Not going to be not necessarily going to be able to keep your doctor. You're going to end up paying more for it, and it's going to leave a lot of people scratching their head. Why did we do this?
Congressman, you may or may not be right about those predictions. predictions about premiums, etc. But what I'm asking is, on this trend line, we had complaints about the website and people were mad that it was having trouble. Now that it's working better, are you happy about that or not?
Look, I want the website to work. If somebody's trying to get insurance, I want them to be able to get it. But I expect that that information be encrypted, it be safe and secure. We're hearing 10 to 25% of the data that is then going to the insurance company is not necessarily accurate. Of course we're going to be hawkish in watching over this. Of course we're supposed to do that in a bipartisan way.
No, and I get, and Congressman, I get want to be tough or hawkish, and Congress has obviously a role for oversight. I think the concern among some, it sounds like you're not joining it, is when people seem to be rooting for failure. The other thing I want to give you a chance to respond to, very important to a lot of people as we head into the holidays, is whether or not we do get those unemployment benefits extended. It's not in this current proposal. If we don't include it, if it doesn't happen, what do you say to those people out there? Do you agree with sort of the Rand Paul view that it's the most helpful thing for them is to not get the benefits?
Look, I want to make sure that people can not only get a job, but get a career. Now, these unemployment benefits, just continuing to extend them in perpetuity is not something I've been supportive of. We need to get more involved in teaching people to fish, not just keep handing out the fish. And it is a tough economy. We're trying to do things to improve the economy. So that's really where the focus of the discussion's got to be.
All right. I love fish, too. I'm from Seattle. We could have salmon sometime. Congressman Jason Chaffetz.
Love it.
Thanks
and
for your time.
From Utah. We'll do it.
All right. Now, coming up next.